Welcome the spicy lady. Some women stop asking who will stay and start asking what deserves their energy. There's a kind of woman people often misunderstand because her choices do not follow the usual pattern. She is not cold, bitter, or trying to prove a point. She simply reached a stage where her peace became more important than being constantly noticed by men. For her, life stopped revolving around whether someone texts back, shows interest, or offers attention. That shift changes everything because once attention is no longer a need, decisions become clearer. What makes this psychology interesting is that it often comes from deep observation. Many Sigma females have watched how easily people lose themselves trying to be chosen. They have seen women reduce their standards just to avoid loneliness. And they decided very early that emotional comfort built on dependence is too expensive. So they learn how to enjoy their own company, make decisions without outside influence, and build routines that do not wait for someone else to complete them. This does not mean they hate men. In many cases, they simply refuse to place men at the center of their identity. A man can be respected, loved, even admired, but never treated like the foundation of their self-worth. That is why they often appear difficult to read. They are careful with emotional access because they know attention can be temporary, but self-respect must remain permanent. The real psychology behind it is simple and powerful. Once a woman becomes deeply comfortable with herself, she stops treating affection like survival and starts seeing it as a choice. That mindset quietly changes how she moves through life. Let's get started. Spicy lady. 1. Men are context, not currency. They see men as companions or allies, not as social currency or a measure of desirability. For a Sigma female, one of the biggest internal changes happens when she stops treating male attention as proof that she matters. At that point, men are no longer used as a mirror for self-worth. They become part of life, not the measure of life. That difference may sound small, but it changes the way she thinks, chooses, and even reacts to everyday situations. Many people grow up in environments where a woman is quietly taught that being desired means she is doing well. If a man is interested, people assume she must be attractive, valuable, or somehow ahead of others. If no one is visibly chasing her, questions begin to appear. Some even start to feel there must be something missing. A Sigma female often notices this pattern early and begins to question it. She asks herself why another person's attention should decide how valuable she feels when she already knows her mind, her discipline, and her character have weight. That is why she can sit with male friends, work with male colleagues, or even receive attention without turning every interaction into a hidden test of desirability. A man can simply be someone she enjoys talking to, learning from, or building ideas with. If he adds wisdom, calm, loyalty, or perspective, she values that. If he only brings attention, she often sees very little reason to take it seriously. For example, while others may feel pressured when a man suddenly becomes distant, she is more likely to ask whether his absence changes anything meaningful in her life. If it does not, she moves on without creating emotional drama around it. This is not because she lacks feeling, but because she has trained herself not to confuse presence with importance. What makes this mindset powerful is that it protects her from many emotional traps. She does not rush into connection because someone notices her. She watches character, consistency, and intention before deciding what place a person deserves. In her world, companionship has value, but only when it comes with depth. A man is appreciated for who he is, not for what his attention says about her. That quiet understanding often gives her a kind of freedom many people spend years trying to find. 2. Intellectual intimacy first. They seek minds over charm, depth over surface attraction. Mental stimulation matters far more than ego strokes. For a Sigma female, attraction often begins long before appearance has a chance to impress her. She notices how a person thinks, how they explain ordinary things, how they handle disagreement, and whether their words carry real weight. A charming face may catch attention for a moment, but if the conversation feels empty, interest fades quickly. To her, the mind often reveals more than appearance ever can. This is why she can sit through a conversation with someone considered attractive and still feel completely untouched if the exchange lacks substance. If every sentence circles around image, status, or rehearse confidence, she often senses the emptiness early. What holds her attention is depth. A person who can discuss ideas, question life honestly, notice details others miss, or speak with quiet clarity often leaves a stronger impression than someone trying hard to impress. For example, imagine two men speaking to her. One spends most of the conversation talking about who admires him, what he owns, and how often people notice him. Another speaks simply but asks thoughtful questions, listens carefully, and offers perspectives that make her think long after the conversation ends. In many cases, the second person stays in her mind because mental connection creates something appearance alone cannot sustain. This also explains why she often loses interest when someone relies too heavily on charm. Charm without depth can feel like polished packaging around very little substance. She is usually more drawn to people who think before they speak, who can explain what shaped their views, and who are comfortable discussing uncomfortable truths without turning every conversation into performance. What makes intellectual intimacy powerful for her is that it creates emotional safety. That a thoughtful mind often suggests patience, awareness, and the ability to understand complexity. She knows that a person who can handle ideas well may also handle emotions with more maturity. Even silence becomes meaningful in this kind of connection. Sitting with someone without pressure, speaking naturally, sharing ideas without pretending often means more to her than dramatic romance. She values conversations that leave her sharper, calmer, or newly curious. In her world, attraction that begins only with surface often fades quickly. But when someone reaches her mind first, interest becomes harder to ignore because deep conversation often touches the part of her that ordinary attention never reaches. 3. Emotional scar tissue. Strength past experiences with men often harden them, not embittered them. They turn lessons into armor. A Sigma female is often shaped by experiences she rarely explains in full. At some point, she has seen promises fail, intentions change, or effort given in one direction without equal honesty coming back. Those moments leave marks. But the difference is that she does not allow those marks to become permanent bitterness. Instead, she studies them. She pays attention to what happened, what she ignored, what she tolerated, and what it taught her about people. That is why her strength often looks quiet rather than dramatic. She may smile, speak normally, and continue with life. Yet inside, she has already built stronger boundaries from lessons that once hurt her. She remembers how easy it is for words to sound sincere while actions slowly tell another story. Because of that, she no longer rushes to trust what is said before watching what is repeated over time. For example, if a man once made her feel important only when it suited him, she learns to notice inconsistency much earlier the next time. If someone gives intense attention one day and disappears emotionally the next, she does not immediately make excuses for it. Her past has trained her to observe patterns before feelings become too involved. What makes this different from bitterness is that she does not decide all men are the same. She simply stops giving easy access to the parts of herself that once trusted too quickly. She can still appreciate kindness, enjoy connection, and remain open to sincerity. But she now understands that openness without wisdom often creates avoidable pain. This emotional scar tissue also changes how she reacts under pressure. Situations that once caused panic may now produce calm reflection. A delayed reply, a sudden mood shift, or unclear behavior no longer automatically pulls her into anxiety because she has already survived confusion before and learned not to lose herself inside in many ways. Her past becomes private training. Every disappointment teaches her where her boundaries were weak and where her judgment needs sharpening. That is why what hurt her years ago often becomes the reason she stands differently now. The strength people notice in her is rarely natural from the beginning. It is often built from moments when she had to gather herself quietly and continue without receiving the explanation, apology, or closure she once hoped for. Over time, those lessons stop feeling like wounds and start becoming protection. 4. Legacy over lust. Their ultimate focus is self-mastery, knowledge, achievement, and freedom. Men are an accessory, never the destination. A Sigma female often thinks beyond what feels urgent in the moment. While many people around her may be pulled by immediate attention, temporary excitement, or the pressure to secure romance quickly, her mind keeps returning to a deeper question. What will still matter years from now? That question quietly shapes how she spends her energy, what she builds, and what she refuses to let distract her. She understands that attraction can be intense but short-lived, while personal growth leaves marks that remain. Because of that, she is careful not to let desire interrupt the life she is trying to build. If something threatens her peace, focus, or long-term direction, she notices it early. This is why she may step back from situations others would continue chasing, especially when she senses that emotional excitement is beginning to cost too much clarity. For example, if she is working toward a goal, learning a skill, growing a business, or rebuilding her life, she does not easily abandon that direction because someone suddenly becomes interested in her. She has seen how quickly people can become distracted by attention and later wonder where their time went. To her, unfinished dreams create a heavier regret than missed attention. This does not mean she rejects connection or pretends she has no human desires. It simply means she does not confuse attraction with purpose. A man may be welcomed into her life, respected, even deeply loved, but he is never placed above the work of becoming the person she knows she still needs to become. That mindset also affects how she measures success. She does not ask whether someone wants her before asking whether she respects the way she is living. A quiet evening spent learning, planning, reading, or simply strengthening herself often feels more meaningful than attention that leads nowhere. What makes this psychology powerful is that freedom becomes part of her definition of love. She wants any connection to add depth, not replace direction. If someone enters her life, they must understand that she is already committed to growth. Years later, what satisfies her most is not the number of people who admired her, but the life she built with discipline, wisdom, and clear choices. She knows beauty changes, attention shifts, and emotions move. But character, knowledge, and what she leaves behind continue speaking long after temporary attraction fades. 5. They've seen behind the curtain and weren't impressed at some point. The illusion faded at some point in her life. A Sigma female often reaches a quiet moment of realization where many things lose the shine they once had. What looked powerful from a distance begins to look ordinary when examined closely. The charm, the attention, the carefully arranged image, the impressive words, even certain kinds of romance that people speak about with excitement can suddenly feel less extraordinary once she understands what is really underneath them. This usually happens because she has observed enough to separate appearance from substance. She has watched people present confidence that later turned out to be insecurity, wearing expensive language. She has seen attention given loudly in public, but lacking sincerity in private. She has noticed how some things that seem rare are actually repeated patterns dressed in different clothing. For example, a man may appear deeply interesting because he knows how to speak well, carries himself confidently, and understands exactly how to create curiosity. Many people may immediately assume depth. A Sigma female often waits longer. She listens beyond the polished surface. If every conversation eventually circles back to ego, control, or shallow self-importance, the mystery quickly disappears for her. What looked rare becomes predictable. The same happens with social status. She may once have believed that certain lifestyles, titles, or visible success automatically reflected maturity or substance. But after seeing enough, she understands that presentation can hide emptiness just as easily as struggle can hide wisdom. A person may have everything that looks impressive and still lack honesty, discipline, or emotional depth. That is why she is often difficult to impress in ordinary ways. It is not pride, it is memory. She has already seen how easily people confuse packaging with value. So she now looks for what survives when the packaging is removed. This mindset also changes how she views what others chase desperately. Attention that once seemed powerful may now look temporary. Approval that many fight for may appear unstable. Even certain romantic fantasies lose their hold when she notices how often people pursue an image instead of reality. What makes this powerful is that she becomes harder to manipulate through appearances. Once illusion loses its grip, choices become clearer. She no longer moves because something looks desirable. She moves when something proves it has weight beyond presentation. That is why her standards often feel quiet but sharp. She's not impressed by what shines first. She waits to see what remains when the shine fades, because that is where truth usually begins. 6. Desire doesn't control them. It passes through them, they feel attraction, but it doesn't take over their thinking. A Sigma female does not live as though attraction does not exist. She notices beauty, charm, chemistry, and the sudden pull that can happen when someone carries a certain energy. She is fully human, so desire is real to her. The difference is that she does not automatically hand authority to that feeling. She has learned that attraction can be powerful and still be incomplete information. For many people, desire quickly becomes a decision maker. A person appears interesting and almost immediately imagination begins writing stories that reality has not confirmed. Small gestures start feeling larger than they are. A simple conversation begins to carry expectations. A Sigma female often interrupts that process early. She allows herself to notice attraction, but she does not rush to build meaning around it before understanding who the person actually is. For example, she may meet someone who speaks well, looks sharp, and creates instant chemistry. She can enjoy the moment and still remain observant. Instead of assuming the feeling means something important, she pays attention to consistency. Does this person listen well when no impression needs to be made? Are they kind when no reward is attached? Can they handle discomfort, disagreement, or honesty without changing character? These questions matter more to her than the first emotional spark. This is why she can walk away from situations others may chase simply, because she understands that desire often arrives before truth. A strong feeling in the beginning does not guarantee depth later. She has either experienced this personally or watched it happen enough times to know that emotions can be sincere while judgment is still incomplete. Her strength is not in denying attraction, but in refusing to let it rewrite her standards. If something feels intense but carries confusion, inconsistency, or emotional carelessness, she does not excuse it simply because the chemistry is strong. She knows many people suffer not because they felt deeply, but because they trusted feeling more than evidence. This also gives her a certain calm in moments where others become impulsive. She can enjoy connection without immediately surrendering direction. She does not treat every emotional wave as a command that must be followed. What makes this mindset powerful is that desire becomes something she experiences with awareness, not something that drags her without thought. She lets the feeling exist, but she still asks whether the person behind it deserves a place in her life. That one habit often saves her from mistakes that begin beautifully, but end without wisdom. 7. They don't perform femininity for approval, no exaggeration. No forced softness, no pretending to fit expectations. A Sigma female often understands very early that much of what society calls femininity is sometimes less about identity and more about performance. There are invisible expectations about how a woman should speak, react, smile, soften her opinions, or even hide certain strengths so that other people feel comfortable around her. Many women learn to adjust themselves almost automatically because approval often comes faster when they fit what people expect. A Sigma female notices this pattern, but she does not always agree to participate in it. This does not mean she rejects softness or warmth. It simply means whatever softness she shows must be real. If she is kind, it is because she genuinely feels kindness. If she is quiet, it is because she has nothing false to add. If she disagrees, she does not wrap every truth in performance just to sound easier to accept. Her personality is not built around what will attract the most comfort from others. For example, in a conversation where everyone expects her to laugh at something she does not find meaningful, she may simply remain neutral instead of pretending. If a situation demands honesty, she may speak plainly even when people expect a more polished answer. Some may call that difficult, but often it is simply someone refusing to decorate herself emotionally for easy approval. This also appears in how she carries herself daily. She may enjoy beauty, style, and elegance, but she does not use them as a disguise. Her appearance reflects her taste, not a constant attempt to become acceptable in every room she enters. If she dresses simply, she is comfortable with that. If she dresses boldly, it is because it matches her mood, not because attention is the goal. What makes this psychology powerful is that it protects her from exhaustion. Constant performance can slowly disconnect a person from who they truly are. She has no interest in building relationships where she must remain edited to stay accepted. Of course, this can cost her attention. Some people are drawn to what feels easy, predictable, and familiar. A woman who speaks and exists without unnecessary performance can unsettle those who expect a script. Yet, she accepts that cost because the alternative feels heavier. In the end, what matters most to her is that her life feels honest when no one is watching. She would rather be fully understood by a few than constantly admired for a version of herself that was carefully arranged for approval. 8. They chose control over connection. They've made peace with the trade-off instead of chasing emotional highs. They prioritize clarity. A Sigma female often understands that every life choice carries a price, even the ones that look wise from the outside. One of the clearest choices she makes is accepting that strong emotional connection can sometimes come with confusion, unpredictability, and loss of personal balance if handled carelessly. Because of that, she often leans toward control, not because she fears people, but because she has learned how easily life can become unstable when emotions begin making decisions that clarity should make. This does not mean she has no desire for closeness. It means she has seen how quickly people can lose focus when they become dependent on emotional highs. A new connection can feel exciting. Messages can become addictive, and attention can start shaping mood without a person noticing it. What begins as interest can slowly become distraction. She notices that pattern early and often refuses to surrender herself to it. For example, if she starts talking to someone and realizes her peace is becoming tied to whether that person replies, explains, or stays consistent, she immediately becomes more alert. She does not like anything gaining that much control over her emotional state before trust has been earned. Instead of allowing the situation to grow unchecked, she often steps back and restores distance until her thinking becomes clear again. That is why many people see her as unusually disciplined in emotional matters. She knows excitement can make people ignore signs they would normally notice. A person may overlook inconsistency, excuse poor behavior, or delay important goals simply because the emotional reward feels strong. She would rather face temporary loneliness than build attachment that weakens her judgment. This choice often looks quiet in everyday life. While others may rush into intense conversations, dramatic closeness, or constant emotional availability, she remains measured. She values routines, private goals, and mental steadiness because those things keep her grounded when emotions become loud. What makes this powerful is that she has accepted the trade-off. She knows control can sometimes feel less thrilling than emotional intensity. But she also knows stability protects what she has built inside herself. That if connection comes, she wants it to arrive without taking away her clarity. She does not want affection that leaves her confused, distracted, or emotionally dependent. She would rather build slowly, understand fully, and remain anchored than chase feelings that feel beautiful at first, but later demand too much of her peace. For her, calm direction often matters more than emotional excitement. 9. They don't associate men with emotional fulfillment anymore. They've separated companionship from inner peace. A Sigma female often reaches a stage where she stops expecting another person to supply what should already exist inside her. This usually happens after enough life experience teaches her that emotional peace borrowed from someone else is often unstable, that if peace depends completely on another person's mood, presence, attention, or consistency, then it can disappear the moment that person changes, leaves, becomes distracted, or simply reveals that they cannot carry what she expected them to carry. That realization changes how she sees men and relationships. She may still value companionship, enjoy closeness, and appreciate sincere connection, but she no longer treats any man as the place where her emotional life begins or ends. In her mind, companionship is meaningful, but it is not the foundation of her inner balance. For example, if she has had a stressful day, she does not automatically believe relief must come through someone calling, comforting, or emotionally rescuing her. She may take a walk, sit quietly, read, write, reflect, or simply allow herself space to settle before speaking to anyone. This does not mean she rejects support. It means she first knows how to return to herself before reaching outward. That is why she often reacts differently in relationships. If someone is kind to her, She appreciates it deeply, but she does not become emotionally dependent on that kindness as though she cannot function without it. If someone disappoints her, she feels it. But the disappointment does not destroy her center because that center was never fully handed away. This mindset often grows from hard lessons. Many women at some point discover that expecting one person to constantly provide emotional stability creates quiet pressure that few relationships can carry. People are human. They have limits, moods, fears, and flaws. A Sigma female accepts that reality and stops building her peace on something naturally uncertain. It also changes what she seeks in a man. She is not looking for rescue, constant reassurance, or someone to fill emptiness. She is more interested in whether a person adds depth, honesty, calm, and mutual understanding to a life that is already emotionally grounded. What makes this powerful is that love becomes cleaner when it is not mixed with emotional dependence. She can care without clinging, appreciate without collapsing, and remain open without losing herself. For her, peace is something carefully built through self-standing, discipline, and inner honesty. If companionship arrives, it should sit beside that peace, not become the source of it. 10. They respect men, but don't prioritize them. There's no resentment, just clarity. Men are not the center of their world anymore. They are part of it, not the focus. A Sigma female often reaches a point where her relationship with men becomes simpler because it is no longer driven by urgency, fantasy, or emotional dependence. She does not carry resentment, and she is not trying to prove that she needs no one. What changes is her sense of proportion. Men remain part of life, but they stop occupying the central place many people unconsciously give them. This means she can respect men deeply without arranging her entire emotional world around them. She can admire intelligence, character, humor, discipline, or kindness in a man and still continue living with her own direction fully intact. Respect for her does not automatically become prioritization. For example, if she is building something important in her life, learning a new skill, protecting her peace, or focusing on long-term goals, she does not abandon that structure simply because someone enters her life. A meaningful conversation or genuine connection may matter, but it does not suddenly move everything else aside. She understands that anything healthy should fit into a life, not replace it. This clarity often surprises people because many are used to seeing emotional attention quickly become central. A message arrives, plans change, interest appears, priorities shift. A Sigma female notices that pattern, but usually refuses to surrender to it. If a man adds value, she welcomes that value. If he creates confusion, unnecessary pressure, or emotional noise, she does not force his importance. This also changes how she reacts to absence. If someone becomes unavailable, she does not immediately feel as though life has lost direction. Her routines remain. Her mind stays occupied with what mattered before that person arrived. This is not coldness. It is simply a life that was already full before connection appeared. What makes this mindset powerful is that it removes hidden pressure from relationships. She is not asking a man to become the source of meaning, identity, or constant emotional balance that allows her to see people more clearly because she is not looking at them through need. In many ways, this creates healthier respect. She values men for who they are, not for what their attention proves about her. She can appreciate companionship without making it the measure of her life. For her, clarity means understanding that people can matter without becoming the center of everything. A man may be welcomed, valued, and respected, but he is never asked to become the axis around which her entire life turns. Final words: freedom is not found in the approval of others, but in the mastery of yourself. Sigma females redefine what it means to live on one's own terms. Their relationship with men is not about conquest, attention, or validation. It is about clarity, understanding, and choice. They have seen patterns of inconsistency, experienced small betrayals, and noticed how attraction can mislead. Instead of letting those experiences harden them in bitterness, they turn lessons into wisdom, creating boundaries that protect their peace and sharpen their judgment. For them, men are companions, not anchors. Connection is measured, not romanticized. Attention is observed, not relied upon. Desire passes through them without taking control, and emotional highs do not dictate their decisions. They value depth over charm, intellect over surface attraction, and stability over drama. Solitude is not a punishment, but a tool for reflection, growth, and clarity. They understand that companionship is a part of life, not the axis around which life revolves. This mindset makes them disciplined, fearless, and self-reliant. Their energy is directed toward mastery, freedom, and meaningful growth rather than fleeting affirmation. They walk through social spaces with confidence that is neither performative nor aggressive. They are simply present, measured, and aware. In essence, Sigma females who do not care about men have chosen themselves first. They have learned that true power comes from internal sovereignty and that the approval, attention, or admiration of others can only ever complement a life already lived with purpose. In a world that often confuses desire with fulfillment, they quietly demonstrate that self-possession is the ultimate freedom. Thank you for watching and God bless you.